How's it going, everyone? It's Calumity here, and do you remember a little movie called Antz? Antz was a movie that came out in the 90s. It came out close to Bug's Life, and I always thought it was really weird how both of them came out so close together, but they weren't related whatsoever. I always thought that was just kind of weird as a kid. But apparently, this series has a lot of video games. It actually has like 4 or 5 different video games. It has multiple Game Boy games. It has a Game Boy Advance game, and it has a PS2 game. Today we're going to be talking about the PS2 game. We're talking about Antz Extreme Racing on the PS2. This game is it's not good at all. It's actually a pretty terrible game. It's very odd that they gave Antz, of all things, a racing game. There's so many different series that I could think of that, you could possibly do some sort of kart racing game with. Antz is not one of the ones that I would expect. I gotta be honest. And the game itself, it feels very low budget. It doesn't control very well. In fact, the controls are very inconsistent. And there's really not much I can say good about this game. So, first of all, there's no Grand Prix mode or anything like that. There's just a simple single-player mode or a two-player mode. That's it. And when you pick single-player mode, you basically have to pick one character, and you have a set amount of courses that you have to play through for each character. And for each character, they all have a different set of courses and a different set of types of like races and stuff like that you have to compete. So they kind of went with this more like adventure mode style to it because it's all kind of catered to the one character, I guess. But they should have just had Grand Prix, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. And they should have just had regular racing because this whole like tailored experience, trying to make this more of like an adventure game, just don't change what already works. If it's not broke, don't fix it. They tried to go a different route with the racing game. They should have just kept a regular racing game because if this was just a Antz video game that had some Grand Prix in it and some single races, I'd be like, okay, you know what, it's not great, but they did the bare minimum. They did the job that was necessary. But without Grand Prix, it feels like you're missing one of the biggest features in this game, and you just have a bunch of boring single events for each character that control terribly, So I feel like they really messed up just not keeping the generic racing format and trying to do something. This is one of the times where they just shouldn't have tried to do something different. They should have just kept the regular format. So the different types of races that you have in this, you have regular vehicle races where you have your carts driving around the races. You have running races where you are running on foot and you're able to jump over obstacles that are in your way. You have some courses where you are riding on the back of different bugs and things like that. You are an ant riding on bigger bugs, basically, and trying to get through the courses. You have time trials, and the time trials in this game, they're at least short. I'll give them that. The time trials in this are at least really short and really easy, so you can fly through them quickly. It's not necessarily a good thing when the positives of video game is the fact that you can at least get through some of the levels quickly because it's so bad. But still, at least you can play through those levels quickly and get to the actual races, which are not much better, but at least you can get to the actual point of the game instead of just doing time trials. The actual racing, whether it's on vehicles, whether it's running on foot, whether it's boarding, there's like this type of snowboard level that you can use, but there's no snow. You're just like on a board going down a gigantic hill. No matter what it is, none of the controls for any of these races feel the same. Each one feels so different from one another, and not in a good way. They all feel loosey-goosey in their own way. The controls are so loose and so wild, and they're just not tight at all. It is a major problem trying to do anything in this game. And I kept finding myself swapping back and forth between the analog stick and the D-pad, just trying to figure out which one would work better. I feel like most of the time in this game, I was using the D-pad because I felt like I could get a little bit of tighter motion. But man, it was such a pain in the butt swapping back and forth because sometimes I would feel like, well, on these running races, I really need to use the analog stick because there's a lot of tighter turns and I want to have more control. But then on these other ones, if you use the analog stick, you don't have any tight control at all and your character just basically turns way too fast and he basically does a 180 when you barely push the thumbstick to a certain direction. So the controls are terrible. These are some awful, slippery, loose controls, and none of the races feel exactly the same, and that is not a good thing. And then you have the actual course designs themselves, and the course designs themselves, those are also poorly designed. Just really tight turns on almost every single course, and they're just not well done at all. The actual ability pickups that you pick up are also not well done at all. One of the things I really hate is that there's one ability that you can use, and each ability is like based around bugs. So you can get like these like flying ant things or flying wasps or something. I guess hornets maybe you could call them, and you could like launch them forward at enemies in front of you, or you can pick up this bug that will use its wings as a shield. There's another one where it will be a bug that will basically just make you go fast. And there's one bug in particular that is a red bug that leaves basically landmines. And whenever you pick it up, a lot of the times the landmines will just go off on your own car. As soon as it places it down, it will just explode and send your car flying up in the air. And it is so hard to recover in this game because if you get behind, on some of these characters, it's really hard to get back into first place, and you do have to get first place to be able to move on to the next races in the main single player mode. So that is not great. That's a pretty poor way of doing things, if I'm being honest. I've mentioned a lot of the other races, so I feel the need to bring this race up as well. There's actually flying races in this game. Unfortunately, they're not very good. They control about as well as the other races in this game, but I figured I would go ahead and bring it up here because they are in this game. It's kind of cool that they gave you so much variety in terms of the racing, and I think that would be a lot better if they just let you do, more like free races and do Grand Prix. If they just would put these in a different format other than just having all these races just like stuck to an individual character. If they would have just let you pick these in like Grand Prix styles or something like that, just let you pick them as any character, I think this would have been a lot better. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. And some of these obstacles, there's so many obstacles on the course. They have way too many obstacles on the course. If you hit them, they could throw you around, and you could be, completely going the wrong way. And with the already bad controls, trying to get your car to turn back around is a pain in the butt. There's some of these objects that if you get hit, they'll just send you straight up into the air. And again, they'll have you facing backwards, and it's just like, great, I might as well just restart at this point because there's no way I'm getting back around and getting to the first place to go to the next level at this point. And then sometimes the AI will just be really dumb instead. It's like sometimes you have moments where you just feels like you get screwed over, but then you have other moments where the AI is just dumb. The very final race in this game is a foot race where you are trying to get to the top of this tree stump. And I kid you not, I thought it was going to be difficult because it was kind of rubber banding me a little bit there at the start. But then it got to a point where the bot just glitched. And it just kept running off the same cliff over and over and over again. It couldn't make its own jump. It couldn't figure out how to make the jump, so it just kept running off the cliff. And because of that, it was stuck on the same part of the course the entire time, and I was able to run to the top without even having to worry about it catching up. So the AI is not very good either. The AI does try to rubber band you, but it does have just bad moments where it will just get stuck. So I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how to feel about the AI, because it just feels like it's either going to... I don't think I would ever say the AI is actually good. It's just that if it gets lucky enough to hit you with an obstacle, it just screws up your entire race. And if it gets to the point where, it's just running off cliffs over and over again, I feel like that's when you see its true power. Its true form is just the AI running off the cliff over and over again. That's its true form, everything else, it's like the AI just got lucky and hit you, and then you're like flying everywhere on the course, and you have to reset because you're too far behind because you got hit by something. But yeah, the AI running off the cliff feels like that's its true intelligence. But overall, yeah, Antz Extreme Racing is a terrible game on the PS2. It is not something I could ever recommend. Graphically, it's okay, I guess. Yeah, it looks like an Antz game. If you want an Antz game, it looks like an Antz game, okay? But it's not good. It's not a fun racing game. It controls terribly. Its music's okay, I guess. That's something that's positive. The sound effects aren't bad. But you're not playing a video game for the sound effects, you're playing it for the fun game, and this is not a fun game. So thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.